And so the way you stop reactivity is by observing the reactions while they are happening. Because the only way to really stop reactivity in your life is to first become aware that you are reacting to situations a lot, whether it be something somebody says, or, you know, something happens to you, or whatever it may be. But the reactions are very usually unconscious, meaning that you don't realize that you're doing them, and they are patterns. And so the moment I started observing my thoughts in meditation 3 years ago, what I found was not only did I learn how to observe my thoughts that I talk about in a lot of my videos, but I also learned how to stop reacting to them and judging them. So when I observe the thoughts and I don't take them so seriously, I'm also not reactive to them. So I'm not emotionally fueling those thoughts as much. And this is going to help me to move forward in life in a much better way, because not only am I not reacting to those thoughts in the meditation, but when somebody overreacts beside me, usually I'll just get sucked into that energy and I'll start overreacting with them. But because I have such a good skill of not reacting to my thinking, I catch myself reacting with that person, and then I immediately let it go just by observing it and being conscious of it. So that is how you be less reactive. You simply observe the reaction within you, and you keep your focus on it. Keep your focus on it. And when I say focus, I mean awareness or consciousness. All these words mean the same thing. And you got to really be careful with the reactions that you have, because they might be holding you back from staying grounded and making the decisions that you want to make. Because instead of reacting, you become aware of the reaction, and then now you have a choice to move forward in the way that you want. But it all starts with observation of the thoughts, and observation of your emotional reactions that are patterns. Okay, you got to keep this in mind. This is extremely important, because it's a pattern. And as long as you are unaware of the pattern, you can think of it as a bad habit. That's another word to, you know, make it a little bit easier for you to understand. It's a bad habit. It's a pattern that you can change. But in order to change it, you have to become aware of the reactivity that you might have with certain situations and certain things that people say. You got to be very aware. You got to be very conscious. You got to stay very present to the moment and catch those reactions. Otherwise, you're going to be forced to relive them for the rest of your life.
Transcend your emotions by creating just enough space for you to respond instead of react. And one of the things I've noticed, especially in men, but people in general, is that we are very reactive. We spend a lot of time trying to even the score and prove a point, no matter what the cost is, leaving metaphorical dead bodies in our wake. And some of you guys know, but most of you don't know, that most of my childhood I struggled with anger issues. I didn't know how to communicate like I do now. And one of the beautiful things about when you take yourself on and choose to dive deep into transformational and personal development work is that it prepares you for when shit hits the fan, right? So the other day, true story, I'm in a Barnes & Noble's in Hawaii, finishing my book, Love Louder, which will be out next year. Ooh, ooh. And this guy walks in and sits down with his dog. We're all, reading, writing, everybody's really quiet. He comes in with a like Game Boy type of console, and he commences to play his game as loud as possible, right? Volume all the way up to the top. And I did what most people do. We all kind of noticed it and looked at each other and were like, so I took a couple breaths. I walked over to him and said, brother man, do you mind turning that down? Some of us are trying to read and it's a little distracting. No response. He didn't even look up at me. So my story at first was that this man disrespected me, right? I felt the emotion come up. But I did what I'm asking you to do, which is create just enough space. I created just enough space by asking the question, how do I want to respond to this? Not how do I want to react, but how do I want to respond? And just enough space was created for me to step out of my anger and story, because the issue is never the issue. Our interpretation of the issue is the issue. You get that? The issue is never the issue. Our interpretation of the issue is the issue. The gift is in the question. Because the moment I asked that question, there was just enough space for me to step outside of my emotions, gather myself, get my wits about me, and make a decision, make a choice, respond. That response could have been nothing. That response could have been millions of things. What I chose to do was I went and found someone who he had just spoken to, and I asked them, I said, could you tell your friend to possibly turn his thing down? Now, how it ends, it doesn't matter. He eventually did turn it down, but he never looked at me in my eyes. So the powerful thing is, I could have done what my emotions would have drugged me to do. And a lot of us spend our time being drugged by our emotions. We spend our lives interpreting the things that happen to us, and we ran all over the track with them. But if you can respond, if you can have your wits about you when hell is crashing all around you, then that's a powerful place to be in.
I suspect there's not one of us here that can't identify some reactive pattern that we could wake up in a little more and find that light of awareness shining through a little more coming home to who we really are. And that's a gift. So here's something that is important that I want to emphasize. There will be times that you'll be in the middle of your pattern and you'll say, okay, I remember that papancha word, pause. And you might note, okay, I'm really angry, and then go right back in and never come back that round. It's like this bucket where you're putting little drops of water in. You're still filling the bucket of mindfulness. It will eventually overflow, and you can trust that. Every time you interrupt a pattern, and there's even a glimmer of presence, even a little bit of remembrance that even presence is possible, you are beginning to alter that neural network that can be so rigid that we can do decades in the same behaviors. You're making a difference. Just pausing, just even naming what you're noticing and wishing you could be more present. It makes a difference. The longer you can pause, the more, just in that length of a pause, how Pema Chodron says, just staying. The longer you stay, the more your natural presence will begin to naturally present itself. Your attitude to what's going on, just the way I said, forgiven, opens up space. This is a poem from the poet Kaveri. There's a monkey in my mind swinging on a trapeze, reaching back to the past or leaning into the future, never standing still. Sometimes I want to kill that monkey, shoot it square between the eyes so I won't have to think anymore or feel the pain of worry. But today, I thanked her, and she jumped down straight into my lap, trapeze still swinging as we sat still. So when you're in that chain reaction, and you find there's some strong energy, obsessive thinking, fear, guilt, just to pause and name it, forgiven, or thank you. I appreciate there's some adaptive reason every part of us is presenting. It's just not adaptive anymore. Thank you. It's okay. Forgiven. There's a natural space that opens up that frees that energy. It can then relax back. We come home some. So let's practice a little. Let's try this piece out, and then we'll just explore one more element of this. So as you come into stillness, remind you of Viktor Frankl's wisdom. He says, between the stimulus and the response, there is a space. And in that space is your power and your freedom.